Okay, hello everyone. Sister Pike asked me if I would demonstrate a recipe for you guys. So I'm gonna do that. So this recipe probably will not win any awards for being the healthiest recipe, but it is pretty quick and easy. And there's lots of variations. I am usually very much a stick to the book, do the recipe exactly kind of person, but if you're not, this is probably a great recipe that you can tweak because I've seen a lot of different ways of doing it. So all that being said, we are going to make today tuna casserole, tuna noodle casserole. So first I'll just tell you what you need to start. So you obviously need noodles. Today I'm going to be using rigatoni noodles. You need about half of a box, which a box is 16 ounces, and I use about half of it, actually a little less. I usually boil half of the noodles, and I don't end up using all of them. So you need anywhere from like 4 to 8 ounces of noodles. You need, today I'm like breaking all the rules. I actually don't even use rigatoni. Usually I use elbow macaroni, but this is what we have today, so we're going with it. You also need cream of chicken soup. I have 3 small cans. I usually actually do 1 big can and 1 small can, but again, I don't have a big can, so I'm doing 3, and I have a 4th backup one in case I need it. You'll need cheese, any kind of cheese, shredded, or you can shred your own. Green peas, and my favorite part, potato chips that I already started on. So once you have all of that, you'll want to boil your noodles. You just boil them. If you add salt for flavor and oil, that'll keep the noodles from sticking together as much, so that's how I do that. Boil them, just cook them until they're soft, and then preheat your oven. I like to do it to about 375, and then it'll bake for about 40 minutes, but I'll try to remind you of that at the end. So preheat your oven to 375. I'm not gonna do mine now because we're not quite ready to eat dinner yet. I'm gonna actually put this in the fridge when I'm done. Which is another nice thing about this recipe, is that you can actually store it for later. If you had a reusable or aluminum foil, you could put it in the freezer. This is a Pyrex dish. It's 13 by 9. That's what we're going to be making it in. You can actually make this in a 9 by 9 or an 8 by 8, but you'll just need a little bit less of everything. But I like to make it in this bigger one because it lasts us a while. It's a great recipe that you can bring to other people. We actually had someone bring us a version right after we had Scarlet, and that was really good. And their version was a little different, but it tasted great, and I really liked it. So yeah, we're gonna get started. I usually don't measure everything out, like the cheese and the peas. I don't really measure out. So today I kind of guesstimated, and we'll see how accurate I was. So, okay, first things first, just take your Pyrex dish here. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. And then take your cream of chicken and just dump it in. Like I said, I'm using 3. Having a hard time getting this one out. I'm using 3, but I may need a 4th one, and I usually use 1 big one and 1 small one. And then I just use a scoop to scrape out the inside if there's a lot left over inside. And also, like I said, this is probably not gonna win any awards for being really healthy. But it tastes good and it is a pretty easy thing. And oh, I forgot one other thing, the obvious thing that you need for tuna casserole. Sorry, you'll need 2 cans of tuna. I'm so sorry that I forgot. Let me grab those. You just saw all my unclean dishes in my kitchen, sorry. So you'll also need just 2 small 5-ounce cans of tuna. And drain them. Open them up and drain them. So I'll do those. Can't believe I almost forgot, sorry. And the nice thing about this too is you don't really have to do any of this in a particular order. And like I said, you can add variations. If you don't like peas, you could maybe try zucchini, or when someone brought us tuna casserole after we had Scarlet, they had some, I think, mushrooms in there. So if you like mushrooms, you could put that in. I'm going to, so this is 3 cans. I'll kind of show you. I'm gonna leave it at 3 right now and add everything else in. And once it's all in, if it looks a little thick, I'll add a little more. I'll add another can. So I'll start with that, and then I'll add 2 cans of tuna. Might need a little help to get these out here. So 2 cans of tuna. Also, if you don't like the taste of tuna, you could easily substitute this with just canned chicken or cooked chicken that's like cut up really fine or shredded. And that would taste pretty good too. That's a nice part of it. You want to break up all the pieces of tuna so that they're a little smaller, because it definitely comes out in chunks. And then you don't have to mix it all the way in, but I just kind of like to break it up a little as I go. And then the next thing I like to put in is the noodles, because the noodles are really kind of the bulk of the substance of the dinner, I guess, of the meal. And so I kind of like to see how much of that I'm gonna get. So I'll grab those now. I already boiled and drained my noodles, so I'll get those. So they're here in the strainer. It's my family eating it, so I'm just gonna touch it. But I'll just put some of these in. I have also used, so I said I usually use elbow macaroni. Last time I actually used whole wheat egg noodles, medium egg noodles, and those were really good, either medium or large. Those turned out really, really well. We have rigatoni right now, so that's what I'm using today. And like I said, I'm not gonna use, this is about half of the box, and I'm probably not going to use all of it. So I'm gonna dump that in and then kind of stir them up. And just mix it really good. Go through and break up some more of the tuna pieces. Keep mixing it. Once that's pretty mixed in, it looks like quite a bit of noodles. Rigatoni are a lot bigger, so not using a ton of them just because they are so big and take up so much more of the space. So yeah, so then I am going to add some frozen peas. I've measured out about a cup here. We'll see how much I end up actually using. And I will just throw them in first. Yeah. Okay, I just did a cup. And for those of you who are like me and are panicking about exactly how much of everything and exactly how much noodles and things to put in, it's really just a taste, which is really hard for people like us to learn. But for those of you who like to really wing it, you could just go crazy with this. I'm sure you could add different spices or different ingredients or whatever to change it up, and I'm sure that you guys could make it something like really awesome for yourself and your family that you would love. So I did a cup of peas, and I will show you what that looks like. So a cup of peas is about this much. They're just kind of spread throughout there. To me, that looks like a pretty good amount. So I'll probably stay with about a cup of the peas. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. And then I'm also going to add the cheese. So I've measured out a little less than 3/4 of a cup of cheese. So I'm gonna kind of sprinkle that in and see. I just guessed. Oh, stressful. Let's see here. If you're a big cheese lover, you'll definitely want to add more. I'm probably being skimpy on the cheese if you were to ask someone. I remember growing up, my mom made this a lot, which is how I learned it. Learned how to make it, and my sister loves cheese. She's huge on cheese, and I don't actually love cheese. I like a little bit of cheese on things, but I'm not huge into it. So if she were making it, she would probably do like double the amount of cheese. I have a 1-year-old who also loves cheese, so I'm sure if she could have a say, she would also put in more, or at the very least she would just snack on the extra cheese while I made it. But luckily she is taking a nap right now, so I can do this somewhat in peace a little bit. So that was 3/4 of a cup of cheese. That looks good to me again. Now the cheese is just mixed in. I know you probably can't see that. But that is all mixed in, and then I just get everything off the spoon, and I take the spoon and I just flatten it out so that the top is relatively flat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just relatively flat. And then the potato chips will serve as the topping. So let me wipe my hands off really quick, and I will do the potato chips. So again, this is something that you can customize. You don't have to do regular potato chips. That's what I'm going to use. You could definitely do something else. Also, you could do breadcrumbs, or I don't even know what else. Something else that's kind of would just create like a top crust. That would kind of just like set it a little bit. So you could do that. Also, this right now, I'll show you, this is about how deep it is. It's about halfway deep on the pan. If you wanted it deeper, you could do deeper. That would be fine. If not, that would be fine too. You can always do less, but the nice thing is that if you make more, it reheats for leftovers really, really easily. So now we'll take the potato chips, and this is the fun or not so fun part, I guess, of it. It's fun because you get to eat potato chips. It's not as fun because what you're going to do is take them up and crush them in your hands, and then just sprinkle them on top. I'm sure that there is probably a better way to do this. Maybe you could put them in a bag and mash them up and then put them on top. That would probably be a little more sanitary if you're making it for a lot of people, or it would probably save your hands from getting greasy from potato chips and also poked a little from potato chips. But this is just the way that I learned how to do it, and it's easy, and like I said, it's just my family eating it. My hands are clean, so I probably should have said during this time, the first step is obviously to wash your hands. So make sure you do that. But I just take the potato chips and crush them up and sprinkle them around until the top is covered. And this is also somewhere that you can just do, you know, kind of to your desire. I like for it to be pretty well covered because I think potato chips taste great. And I just like it to have a nice kind of crust on top. But if you wanted it to be a little more sparse on the potato chips, you could definitely do that. And like I said, you could use something else as a topping too. That would be fine. But this is about how mine looks right now. Again, let me kind of wipe my hands off and I'll show you. So that is now the casserole. It's all covered like that. So then one last little tip that I have before you put it in the oven is just to make cleanup a little easier. I always get, you can kind of see above the layer of casserole, there's just some cream of chicken on the sides. I always end up getting some on the sides. So what I'll do is I'll just take my finger around the edge. You could take, I'm sure, like a paper towel or a cloth or something. That would make this a little cleaner. But I just take my finger around the edge right above the casserole line and wipe off any extra that got on the top. Because once you put it in the oven to bake, that's a little bit harder to get off. It's not impossible, you can definitely still get it off the pan, but it just keeps the pan a little bit nicer, and just keeps it a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to clean up afterwards. So then once that's all done, you can see that the edge is just a little bit cleaner. It's not perfect, but a little bit better, so that will help with that. So once that's done, again, you put it in the oven at 375 for about 30 to 45 minutes. I find 40 is right around a sweet spot. You want to leave it in the oven until the tops of the chips start to turn a little bit brown. You don't want to burn them, but just until they're a little bit more browned out. And then you'll need to let it sit and cool for probably 5 to 10 minutes. And then you can just serve it using like the spoon that I mixed or whatever. You can make it with some steamed veggies or maybe a salad or some sort of fruit for a side. But yeah, that is tuna casserole. So for me, I'm just going to take a lid to this Pyrex. If you have tinfoil or plastic wrap, you can use that. And I'm gonna put it in the fridge. That's the nice thing about this is nothing in it has to cook really to a certain temperature because all of the ingredients can just be eaten as they are. So it doesn't have to bake to a certain temperature. And also it is super easy to just stick in the fridge, pull some out, dish it onto a plate and reheat it in the microwave later, or throw the whole thing back in the oven and reheat it. And it stores really well and is easy to take to neighbors as well. So that's why I like that recipe. Sorry this one a little long. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Let me know if you have any questions or if you guys want to share any variations that you have on the recipe. I would be totally open to that as well. Thanks, guys.